Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office.
That was President Richard Nixon on August 8th, 1974, and a month later, President Ford pardoned then former President Richard Nixon for all crimes committed while he was president of the United States. Joining us now is NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss. And Michael, I've been thinking of you all night since 7:30 p.m. or so when we learned about this, eager to ask you where we would be tonight, precedentially, which is to say in precedent terms, if Gerald Ford had not pardoned Richard Nixon.
I think we might not be tonight, Lawrence. And by the way, thank you for everything you've been saying on the air all evening. I've learned so much as usual. But I don't think we'd be in this position necessarily of dealing with a president who is not only the first one in history to be under federal indictment, but, you know, just think of it's almost like science fiction or a thriller that would be implausible. You know, what people are talking about now, violation of the Espionage Act, you know, the images of those boxes going on the plane, talk about, you know, why did Trump seemingly lie to the National Archives and say that there was no problem, drag his feet on sending them back? Where are the papers now? Did he give it to foreign governments? Did he sell them? Did he do this for some kind of favor? This is something that, you know, you and I have talked about Richard Nixon. This makes Richard Nixon look like a schoolboy. And my point would be, Gerald Ford, a fine, well-intentioned man, but why on earth did he pardon Nixon only 30 days after Nixon resigned? What was his hurry? It was even politically damaging to him because, as I think you would agree, if he had waited a little while longer, he would not have sent so many Republicans to defeat in that November election. So my point is, why was Ford in such a hurry? And if he had at least waited for Nixon to be indicted, arrested, fingerprinted, or maybe even jailed for a night or two, maybe someone like Donald Trump decades later would be a little bit less cavalier about breaking all sorts of rules that might subject him to the same fate.
You know, that's exactly what I've been thinking. I mean, Donald Trump is a very, very, very bad student, right? No matter what you expose him to in any class. And it seems that what Donald Trump, bad student, learned in 1974 was the president is above the law. And then when he became president, he thought he could live by the Nixon rules, which is you're above the law, and Nixon didn't get in any real trouble for it.
Totally agree with you. And remember what Nixon said to David Frost in 1977. It makes me sick to recite it, but this is what he said. Well, if the president does it, that means that it is not illegal. You know, how dare he, you know, after getting a pardon, after having done all those things that probably would have put him into prison for years. And then Nixon goes to New Jersey and New York, and guess who sucks up to him for the duration of the 1980s and the early 1990s? One Donald Trump, who writes him letters saying, Mr. Nixon, Mr. President, you're one of our greatest presidents. I wish you would come and live in Trump Tower. Flew him to Texas on his private plane. So, you know, Trump was in great proximity to Nixon, absorbing the fact that Nixon had done all this stuff and got away with it. So when Trump becomes president later on, you know, it is not exactly irrational for him to think that he can do that too. That might not have happened if Donald Trump remembered seeing Richard Nixon in an orange jumpsuit or being fingerprinted or in court.
Yeah, and it would have removed this rhetorical point, you know, that Donald Trump gets to make tonight, is this has never happened to any other president. And it could be much more meaningful to his followers to know that, yes, it has, that presidents and ex-presidents certainly can be held accountable by law.
Right. And in 1994, 1995, I went to see Gerald Ford at his home in Colorado, which was on a ski run. Nicest man on earth, well-intentioned. And I said, why did you, pardon Nixon so quickly? Why didn't you at least wait for him to be fingerprinted so that people would feel that there was equal justice in this country? And he said two things. Number one, I didn't have the stomach for this to go on. It was distracting people from my presidency. And he also took out of his wallet, as he did for many other people, a little card which was printed with a case called Burdick versus the United States, 1915, which said that when someone accepts a pardon, it's an admission of guilt. Those things have never really explained it to me, and as much as I admire many things about Gerald Ford's many fine qualities, I think what we had seen in the last 7 years was a direct result of him being so quick about that pardon.
Michael Beschloss, thank you very much for joining us on this historic night. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. My honor. Thank you.